How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your April 2019 horoscope for Taurus, Sun, and Rising. How is it going? Thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. Let's go ahead and get right into it. This month we've got quite a bit going on, especially with Taurus Rising. Happy birthday. We're going to be going into your birthday by the time we get into the end of April if you're a Taurus Sun. Right now it is still the Aries time though. So anyway, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about first before we get into what's going on in April. And I wasn't able to do my last month's horoscope for March, so I didn't get to talk about Venus going into Pisces and Mars going into Gemini. Venus did go into Pisces in March, however, that's going to be around for the majority of April. And Mars is also going into Gemini on the last day of March, so I didn't even get to talk about that with I didn't even do last month's horoscope, so I got to talk about that now. Anyway, as Venus is now in Pisces, Venus is going to be in your 11th house. Venus is now in her the sign of exaltation. She likes to be here. Venus can work and operate under better conditions and can do a little bit more of what she wants when she's in Pisces. It's one of her favorite signs. And Venus is this planet of love and value. She's trying to bring things together. She wants to connect. Venus is also about things like, money and relationships, also expression and more of the beautiful things. And as she's in the sign of Pisces, where Pisces is more about, beliefs and not having boundaries and exploring depths of certain things, we're going to find Venus in your 11th house of friendships, of social networks and groups and endeavors of that kind of stuff. Now, with Venus being in this place, in this house for you for the next couple of weeks, this is going to be a good time to reach out to friends. If you have, if you have friends, maybe you don't have friends and you're like me. But if you've got friends, this is going to be a good time to enjoy hanging out with them, be more with your friends, enjoy what's going on with them and how more you can connect with them, and kind of like experience more of the value of what your friendships and what if you have like a network or a group of people that you want to be with, this is a good time for that. Now, the other thing is on March 31st, we're going to have Mars enter Gemini. Mars has been in your first house in Taurus for a little while, so you could have dealt with some, some problems, some irritations with yourself, maybe not going about things the way that you want to. You've been fixated on a certain idea. Mars, this planet of action and energy and drive, ambition, he's now also in the sign of Gemini. Gemini is a dualistic sign. It's about splitting things up. It's about measuring things, understanding things, getting the concept down, and wanting to learn, wanting to just grasp the idea of something. Now, while Mars is in the sign, you may find your energy a little bit more expanded, kind of like, going one way and another way. But we find Mars going through your second house. Now, your second house is about money, your values, what you own and what you possess. And so with Mars going through your second house, it's a dry planet, it's a fiery planet. You may be spending more money at this time. You may be having your resources go in two different ways. You may be trying to fund this and fund that. So expect with Mars being in Gemini in your second house to, it's not necessarily you're going to go broke or anything like that, but be cautious or be aware of what you're spending your money on, and that you're not just putting all of your chips into this side and into this side, because that can kind of spread you a little bit thin. Now, let's go ahead and just start talking about what is going on in April, though. Is the first thing that we got going on is on April 5th, we've got the new moon in Aries. Now, we are going to be talking a lot about Aries stuff for you guys because this is happening in your 12th house. However, this new moon is happening in Aries in your 12th house on the 5th. When you have a new moon, it's two luminaries. Is that my cat in the background? We have two luminaries that are in the same sign. They're highlighting, basically they're focused on whatever sign or whatever house that is for you. And with Aries, this is about things like identity. This is about things like capability. This is about things like worth. This is about things that kind of sum up what it means to be able to do, representing yourself, things of that nature. Now, this new moon is happening in your 12th house, though. And the 12th house is hidden, repressed parts of yourself, the subconscious, things that are blinding to you, things that you're not aware of always. And when you have this new moon in Aries, I think this is going to be a big time to kind of reset the way that you kind of look at yourself. Maybe kind of go, where are my actions driving me or influencing, what's influencing my actions that I may not be aware of? And where do I need to check for myself? This is going to be a good time to, be a little bit more secluded or isolated if you need some more, I guess, healing time. You can't just be, even though with Venus in your 11th house, you want to be socializing and be with your friends. This new moon may be a good time to recharge your own batteries, is going to be a good way to put it. Now, the next big thing that's happening is on April 10th, we have Jupiter stationing retrograde. Now, this isn't the biggest deal in the world, but what I really wanted to hit on is Jupiter's been going through, what is that? I have it written down here to remember, your 8th house. Yeah, that sounds about right. You've had Jupiter going through your 8th house now for a couple months. Jupiter, this planet of expansion, this planet of positivity, your beliefs, your spiritual sense. Jupiter's trying to make the best in any given situation. It's, Mercury's your means and Jupiter's your ends. And now Jupiter's in its home sign of Sagittarius, where it can, it has an aim, it has a goal, it has a vision to seek out and that it believes in, that's holding it near and dear. It's kind of like putting the air in the fire to make it bigger. Now, Jupiter's been going through your 8th house though, and the 8th house is of other people's money, taxes, inheritances, death. It's a hidden house to where you can't really always see what's going on there. However, with Jupiter going through your 8th house, kind of a positive, but a weirdly positive time. And anyway, Jupiter has been expanding this area of your chart, so you might have seen, if you have like a partner, but they're making more money, or if you maybe got an inheritance, or things that are kind of 8th housey. Jupiter's been moving over that area, showing you what's possible, showing you what's there. Jupiter's now going to retrograde, and this is really about a time of contemplation and kind of rethinking about these things. What do these things mean to you? This kind of sounds weird because this is in the 8th house, and the 8th house is just a weird house to talk about in general because it's not something that you're always going to see. It's not something that you're always going to deal with on an everyday level. But as Jupiter retrogrades for the next couple months, you may find yourself really looking at, your resources, or, if you're in any debt, if you have taxes to pay, or your partner's money. This also has to deal with fears and anxieties. Jupiter retrograding right here is basically kind of like looking within and looking a little bit more internally, not being so external with, how positive things can be, and kind of sitting on it and being like, is this what it's supposed to look like? Is this what it is looking like? Is this vision true for me? Is this, realistic? Or I shouldn't say realistic. Is this idealistic? Is this where I want to be? Now, that is happening for the next couple of months, so we're going to be talking about that as we go on. But the next big thing that we've got going on is on April 16th, we have Mercury going into Aries and leaving shadow all on the same day. This is exciting because Mercury's been retrograde in your 11th house now for a little while. And that could have made, miscommunications with your friends, or, your network, your community. Maybe you're a part of the 11th house is like volunteer work, humanitarian type stuff. And so this Mercury retrograde could have made, a confusing situation in that area. So it's now finally cleared up and done. Mercury's now going to go to your 12th house in where Aries is basically at for your chart. But as Mercury goes into Aries and it leaves shadow, it's kind of like a huge switchover in a sense. Mercury is this planet of communication, of ideas, of expression in a more vocal way, or a written way is a good way to put it. Mercury going into Aries is kind of like, you know what you want to say, you know how you want to say it, you address things kind of bluntly, a little bit more, not necessarily serious, but a little bit with more agitation is a good way to put it. A little bit more fiery and sporadically, like not afraid to say what you want to say. Now, that's not necessarily going to be the big thing for you, but as Mercury's going through your 12th house, where Mercury is, the messenger, it's bringing up messages. Mercury's going through your 12th house of, again, hidden and repressed parts of yourself, unacknowledged parts of yourself, the subconscious. It's also in like a traditional sense, like hidden enemies. So things that aren't necessarily for your own good that you can't always see. And so as Mercury goes through this area of your chart, I really think that this is going to be a big time of understanding how you express things and how you understand that is a good way to put it. Now, the 12th house being repressed parts of yourself, unacknowledged parts of yourself, Mercury being this planet of communication and ideas in Aries, I think this is going to be a time of really looking at yourself and being like, how do I speak? How do I communicate? How do I come across? How do I, express my, I don't want to say power, even though Aries is like a power type energy, but how do you go about addressing, initiating conversation or through conversation? And I think this is going to be a big time to kind of bring up like, hey, you don't have to be so chill and relaxed and receptive a lot. You can be a little bit more pushy with, what it is that you want to do or what you want to say. Now, the next thing that we got going on is on April 19th, we have the second full moon in Libra. Now, Libra having two full moons in the same sign isn't the biggest deal in the world, but it is highlighting this axis of your chart a couple times, one more time than usual. And so we had this new moon in Aries, which is kind of like recharging your batteries, seeing more of yourself. This full moon in Libra is going to be highlighting your 6th house. The 6th house is all about your work, your routine, your day-to-day habits. You know, your beliefs and your subconscious beliefs that you hold will definitely show in your behaviors and your actions and your habits. And this is kind of like, you know, what I was saying about uncovered parts of yourself, repressed parts of yourself. This full moon in Libra, also the first one that we had on the equinox, the second full moon in Libra can just bring more of a realization of like, how do those how can you delegate those habits? How can you make more, you know, I don't want to say peaceful habits, but it's kind of like, what are you doing in that terms of work, of routine, of your health, and what needs to be balanced in order to have a healthier and positive mindset about yourself. So that is going to be kind of a big deal just because it's highlighting that axis a couple times. But the next big thing that we've got going on, 420, we've got the sun going on in Taurus, or sun going into Taurus, so happy birthday. You finally get to have your solar return, yada yada yip-de-doo. But we also have Venus going into Aries as well. So the sun's going to be going into your 1st house. You can express yourself a little bit easier, or if you're a Taurus sun, you know how it feels on your birthday. You just feel a little bit more you. Now with Venus going into Aries though, she's going from her sign of exaltation to her sign of detriment. And she's going into a hidden house in your chart, something that doesn't always get seen. It's, you know, again, hidden repressed stuff, the 12th house. Now, as Venus goes in here, where Venus is, again, about value, relationships, bringing things together. She's peaceful. She wants to have beauty and have luxury. She's in the sign of Aries. That's kind of like Venus wants, I don't want to say Venus wants, like, conflict, or Venus wants, like, that, you know, Venus wants the intensity. Venus wants the experience. Venus wants to be in it. Venus wants to be a part of the, you know, the movement is a good way to put it. And as Venus is going through your 12th house, I think this is going to come back down to a lot of, you know, again, hidden repressed parts about yourself. What do you want to involve yourself with? This is Venus in Aries. This is about the self. So this does have to come back down to like self-love and really looking at where you can apply more of that in your life. However, Venus in Aries is also kind of like, you know, this is what I value and this is what I want to do. This is what I want to, like, you know, I'm very passionate about what I value and I'm going to go about it in this way. So as it goes through your 12th house, is going to be a time of uncovering and kind of seeing things that you're like, hey, I do feel this way about a certain situation, and this is how I want to address this certain situation because this is what I value. So you're definitely going to be experiencing that as we go on for the next couple weeks with Venus in Aries. Now, the next big thing that we have after that is we're going to have the Sun conjoin Uranus on April 22nd. This is important because Uranus is now in Taurus. It's locked in, and I probably don't have to say anything about that because y'all know how it's been. If you're a Taurus rising, especially an early Taurus rising, you have felt it. But while the Sun is going to go on top of Uranus, this is kind of like that kickstart of like, if maybe you haven't seen what Uranus and Taurus in your 1st house, or for your Taurus Sun, whatever house it is, if you haven't seen what that's going to look like yet, you're definitely going to see what that's going to feel like. And with Uranus being in your 1st house, you may feel a little bit more excited about yourself. Maybe doing something innovative and different with your personality or how you see yourself or your image and things like that. So that is exciting news. Uranus going through your 1st house, expect the unexpected with yourself. Anyway, the last couple things that we've got going on is on April 26th, we have Mars squaring Neptune. And this is pretty important because, you know, I was talking about how Mars is going through Gemini in your 2nd house, and you may be spending a little bit more money, and your finances could be here and there. As it squares Neptune, while Neptune's in your 11th house, Neptune's about, you know, idealism, illusion, fantasy, spirituality, and things like that. It's in your 11th house of friendships and networks and communities, so this can be just a weird area for you. Mars squaring that is kind of like, what sense of idealism are you holding over the communities that you're involved with, or with the friends or the group of people that you're involved with, and how is that being reflected, like, with your finances, with your money? Are you spending too much money going out? Like, Venus being through Pisces in your 11th house, like, you're going to be hanging out with your friends. You may be spending a little bit too much money, though, with that. So be a little bit aware of, like, you know, is going out taking too much from you? And I think that's what that Mars square Neptune is really going to look like. And that could also show up in just like, hey, I don't value this anymore. I don't value these connections. I'm going to change direction a little bit and start hanging out with, you know, this group of people, or doing this a little bit more. And then also on the 26th, we have Pluto stationing retrograde. Not a big deal, but this whole month, we're going to have the South Node basically right over the Pluto. It basically starts off right like in between the 5th and like the 1st of the month. So with the South, we have Pluto and Capricorn. This is going on in your 9th house. And this is a big deal because Pluto has been there, and it's, you know, it's causing a lot of fear and anxiety around, you know, this 9th house topic of, you know, beliefs, spirituality, of, you know, far distance travel, foreign relations, foreign languages, publishing, as well as higher education like colleges. And so you have Pluto going through right here, which is really bringing a lot of fear and anxiety around this area. And the South Node going over that for like this whole month is kind of like, yeah, there's nothing that we can do to change that. The biggest thing that we can do is move on from the fear of everything collapsing and work on how do we salvage, how do we reconstruct, what can we use right now. And this is why I bring up Pluto being retrograde, is this is where it's kind of like, you know, not the construction begins or anything like that, but the tone of that, the Plutonian ideas of like big, massive level, scary stuff at times. You know, I don't want to say it's going to be more prevalent or present. I'm not trying to strike fear in anybody because it's nothing to be afraid about, but it's like, expect it to be a little bit more, you know, around the corner in a sense. But why I bring this up is because the last thing that's going on is on April 30th, we have the South Node going over Saturn. And now Saturn could be really representing some challenges and difficulties in this house for you of, you know, education, far distance travel, you know, learning something, all that type of stuff. And as Saturn has created limits and barriers and structures that have kept you enclosed in this area, the South Node is kind of going, let's not use these as barriers. Let's use these walls as support. And Saturn's wanting you to construct something and to build something that's long lasting and that you can dedicate and commit to. And Saturn's wanting you to, whatever that looks like for you, this is very serious stuff. The South Node is kind of like, let's take these walls and these limitations that we see and let's use that as a foundation to support me moving forward. How do I utilize and anchor this energy to support me moving forward and to create something that's long-lasting and very realistic? And that's exciting stuff for you guys. So with that being said, that's what I've got for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you guys next month.